All right, good morning, everybody. One of the things that I do every week is I translate the Dvar Torah from the Kalover Rebbe shlita, from Lashon HaKodesh, from the holy language into English. Usually I'll sit down and type it. Once in a while I'll make a video recording it. So that's what we'll do here. Especially maybe the editors might be able to type out what I'm saying, because I'm not able to type right now, but I am able to record. Or maybe when I get to work, I can take a few minutes to type it out on my break. This is the Dvar Torah for this week's Parshas Tazria. So it says, Yesh la'akor midas hakina hamavia lashon hara machlokes. That we have to uproot the attribute of jealousy, which brings people to speak slander and to have arguments, to have strife. So he quotes the pasuk, quotes the verse, Leviticus 13, verse 46. All the time that the plague of leprosy, we'll call it colloquially biblical leprosy. You know, it's not Hansen's disease that we call leprosy today. It's interesting. I remember, just as a side point, Rabbi Hertz said that the proof that Hansen's disease is not the biblical leprosy is that biblical leprosy was curable and Hansen's disease is incurable. That's no longer approved because it is curable. There are actually organizations. I always think about this time of year to maybe give a few dollars to these organizations. I haven't done it yet, but I think about it. That there are these organizations that that help cure people of Hansen's disease, of leprosy. And they actually, it's something like $25 to cure someone of leprosy. It's like, but so far I haven't engaged in that. But anyway, obviously biblical leprosy is something different. So it says, all the days that the plague is within him, he is impure. He shall be, Yitma means he causes others to be impure. Tamehu, he is impure. Badad Yeshev, he'll dwell alone. Michutz l'machin and Meshavai, his dwelling place will be outside of the camp. Again, it's Leviticus 13, verse 46. So I won't read it all in Hebrew, I'll just translate it. The Rebbe writes that once upon a time there was the Yiddish Kodesh, Chossi Galena from Pshischa, was a famous Hasidic Rebbe from Poland. I was zeicher to be by his grave once with his Einikel Ben Acher Ben Biala Rebbe from Borough Park. We went to Poland once. I think that was in 2005. And he said, L'Talmido Rebbe Bunim in Pshischa, the Chaver, he told his student, the Rebbe Bunim from Pshischa, who was buried in the same oil there with the Yiddish Kodesh, and his colleagues, that they should go out on a trip, on a voyage, on go out on the road, a road trip. But he didn't tell them. He said, we're going to go somewhere. He didn't say where they're going. So the Chassidim went, and then they reached a certain inn. All the ways the Chassidish stories have inns. So they reached the inn, and the innkeeper wanted to serve them a feast. But they weren't so sure how kosher is this hotel. And each food they started wondering, is this really kosher? Who was the sheichet? Who was the ritual slaughter of the meat? Was the meat salted properly, etc.? And all of a sudden they heard this a voice coming suddenly from one man who was wearing rags, worn out clothing, and he was sitting behind the oven, and he screamed at them, "Chasidim, Chasidim, you worry so much about what you put in your mouth. Why aren't you worried about what comes out of your mouth?" And at that point, the Hasidim realized that's why the Rebbe sent them on this journey, in order so that they should hear these words of Musar, these words of rebuke, these ethical teachings from this pauper. And then they went home because they understood they did what they had to do. They went on this quest and fulfilled their mission. And they decided from then on they would work on Shmiras HaLashon, on being careful about what they're talking about, being careful to avoid speaking slander and so forth, and lies and other issues related to the types of words that they use. He's going pretty fast to have his blinkers on. The Rebbe continues that our holy literature explains that just as non-kosher foods will pollute the heart, so too improper words, unkosher language pollutes the heart, confuses the heart, stuffs it up, defiles it. This is particularly true when a person speaks Lashon Hara. Lashon Hara means slander, which is it's not that you're necessarily lying about someone. You're telling the truth, but it's not a nice truth. You're not supposed to talk like that. There's no purpose in it. And it's a sin. It's a very grave sin, which the sages equate that with some of the gravest capital sins. And we see in Scripture that it actually can lead to very grave sins. So we have to be very careful about Lashon Hara. We have to know the halachas. There are parameters. Not everything is Lashon Hara. Being careful is careful in both ways. There are times when you have to speak up, but you have to know what's what. And the Rebbe that's just me adding this back to the Rebbe's words, that when a person speaks Lashon Hara, when a person speaks slander, this brings a spirit of impurity on all of the person's, every limb of the person's body. The Zohar Kodesh brings that in next week's Parshas Tazria. And that's how a person starts to develop improper character traits that come from what the Kabbalists call the other side, the side of evil. The Sitra Achra, which is the source of evil, is called the Sitra Achra, the other side. So therefore we see that someone who conducts himself consistently is accustomed to speaking Lashon Hara, to speaking slander, to speaking negative words. Let's hold on because it's a little bit dangerous over here. It's not just that his mouth becomes evil, but also his heart becomes evil, becomes bad, becomes damaged. And he's not able to have any patience when people speak positively, meaning, and it's true, you see that psychologically. People who are Balei Lashon Hara, they can't stand to hear anything positive. Everything has to be negative all the time, and it's a very bad trait. He's always trying to find something to like prosecute someone else. And he's always seeking, to find something negative to prosecute somebody else and to insult somebody else. And he has no mercy. And in that way, he becomes damaged, and he loses all of his positive character traits. And the truth is that, generally speaking, the source of this very negative character trait of lashon hara, of slander, comes from the attribute of kinna, of jealousy. Someone who feels bad about themselves and they're jealous of somebody else, they tend to seek out a way to lift themselves up by knocking down somebody else. This is also brought in the Zohar Kadosh in Parshas Tazria. He says it's volume 3, page 54b, that on account of the fact that a person cannot stand that someone else is better than him, is more than him, this is why he'll speak negatively against him, lashon hara, in order to knock him down. And through this itself, the one who speaks lashon hara, the one who speaks slander, gets sunk more and more into this negative character trait of jealousy, among other negative character traits. More so, it's brought down that lashon hara, that slander, brings one to the negative character trait of machlokes, of strife, of fighting with other people, of arguing and being upset at other people and having feuds. When someone speaks lashon hara, when someone speaks slander against someone else, the second one goes back and slanders the first one. And this is a what do they call that? A chain reaction of sense, or it's a circular reaction. I forgot, there's a better word for it, I'm trying to think. That just continues on and on, that one speaks against the other more and more, and each one adds more and more, and then he finds allies to be around him to protect his own honor. And so the second one also, so then you have two sides, two parties, who each one says it's a mitzvah to persecute the other one. That you're actually doing something positive by persecuting this other guy. And this just causes many sins. And then the fire of strife goes and burns more and more with words and deeds that these people would have never thought of in the beginning. When this whole thing started, they would have never thought to react in such a negative way to the other guy. They never thought they could come to such a low level. And this chain reaction, this like nuclear chain reaction, it's like it becomes something along the lines of like nuclear fusion reaction, a chain reaction that just causes these people to lose this world and the world to come. So therefore, ignorant people, Amaratzim, Amei Haaretz, who have not cleansed and purified their character through the power of the Holy Torah, and they don't conduct themselves in a Torah fashion by being careful about guarding their mouth and their tongue, being careful what they speak of. These types of people wind up starting machlokas, starting, fights against other people. However, Torah scholars, Talmidei Chachamim, are just the opposite. They add peace in the world. Right? That's what Chazal say. We read in davening every day, or some people every Shabbos, that Talmidei Chachamim marbim shalom ba'olam. The Gemara says that the Torah scholars, it's in the Gemara that the Brachas and a few other places in Shas actually, that Torah scholars add peace in the world, and it's not just that they know how to learn, and that they've read a lot of books, which is important, but that they put it into their lives, and so the thing is that a true Torah scholar doesn't really have jealousy, and they guard their tongues, that they are careful not to speak words that could cause machlokas, that could cause strife. Again, we're not talking about machlokas l'shem shamayim. We're not talking about in learning. We're not talking about kinas sofrim. And those are, that's a totally different world. We're not talking about that. We're talking about the regular types of strife and jealousy, which are poison. So we find by Aaron HaKohen, by Aaron the high priest, the brother of Moses, that he was an expert. He was very distinguished in this attribute of avoiding being jealous of other people. We saw how happy he was that his younger brother, Moshe Rabbeinu, Moses, Moshe Rabbeinu Olav Shalom, that he was, even though he's 3 years younger than him, but he was proud of him. He looked up to him. He was his leader. He didn't care that he was 3 years older than him. And so he had no jealousy that his younger brother was the leader, was his teacher. This is important. I'm going to add to this over what the Rebbe said. There's stories of certain Rabbanim, when they got older, they went on their own path because they couldn't bear to listen to a Gadol who was 20 years younger than them. And they didn't, they were still frum and everything, but certain issues they might have, had problems with hashkafically and so forth, because they couldn't humble themselves to someone who was younger than them. I always joke around about, a particular famous person who's an Orthodox Jew, and his birthday is the day after mine. That means our bris was on the same day, because I was born on Shabbos with a C-section, so they didn't make the bris on Shabbos, they made it on Sunday, and because that's the halacha. And I always kind of joke around, and I was like, I have one day over him, how come I'm not as famous as he is, or whatever, But anyway, and here I am jealous of this famous, political commentator who's an Orthodox Jew. People know who I'm talking about. Here we see Aaron HaKohen wasn't jealous of his little brother, Moshe Rabbeinu. And he looked up to him and he considered him his teacher. And Aaron HaKohen was no small person. He was tremendous. You can't imagine the holiness of Aaron HaKohen and the scholarliness of Aaron HaKohen. And yet he was Mikabel Maros. He accepted his little brother, who was, the great. We don't think about these things, we don't realize. That's the brilliance of the Kalover Rebbe, that he hypes these types of things to point to show us these obvious things. that we just don't think about, you know. And so back to what the Rebbe is writing. So Aaron HaKohen didn't have the slightest bit of jealousy for Moshe Rabbeinu, and he just automatically, you know, it was just natural to him not to speak Lashon Hara, to have Shmiras HaLashon, to only speak words that contained knowledge and wisdom, connection to God, and never to Chas v'Shalom speak Lashon Hara. And this is already, we see this in Scripture by the Navi Malachi, the last prophet, Malachi, chapter 2, verse 7. It says, Ki sifsei choyen yishmeru das, that the lips of the priest guard knowledge. And that means that they are guarded by knowledge, meaning through knowledge, through this connection to God, of knowing God and knowing Torah. Sifsei kohen yishmeru, they're guarded. Yishmeru das, the knowledge guards the tongue, the lips of the kohen. And that goes back to their Zeta, also my Zeta, because my Baba was a Bas Kohen, my elder Zeta was a Kohen. My mother's father was a Kohen. So Aaron HaKohen is also my Zeta, though I'm not a Kohen. So the elder Zeta, Aaron HaKohen, he had that midah of Shmiras HaLashon, and the Shmiras HaLashon came from Das Torah. And that's why, as we know from Chazal, we know our sages write in Pirkei Avos that Aaron HaKohen, Aaron the high priest, his whole attribute was that he loved peace and he pursued peace. And he would nullify jealousy and hatred in interpersonal relationships, meaning he would go and seek out people who were not getting along and try to patch up their relationships. How did he do this? Because he taught the Jewish people, he taught the Israelites, the children of Israel, that they need to know that everything that happens is only from God, and everything that God does is for the benefit of mankind. And so therefore, a person can have no jealousy against his fellow who has more than him. And he has no reason to speak Lashon Hara, to speak slander or machlokas, or to fight with people, which these things destroy a person's life. And it's possible to say that this is why we have to bring the Mitzorah, the leper, to the Kohen, to the priest, because Chazal say in Erechim, Tes Vav Amud Beis, Erechim 15b, that leprosy, the plagues of leprosy, come on a person because of the sin of Lashon Hara, of the sin of speaking the improper words, and all kinds of things, speaking, vulgar language, foul language, things, speaking lies, all kinds of misuse of the gift of speech that separates us from the animals. That is why a person would be afflicted with the nega tzaras, with biblical leprosy, because he spoke, either he spoke slander or he spoke lies about a person, etc. That happens when people are jealous, and when people are selfish, and when people are greedy. And that is what causes a person to have, there's 2 dead possums. Is that one playing possum? I should not be, I'm mischayv b'nafshay, so I know what you're saying. how beautiful are its teeth, right? So anyway, all right, that's from the Chavos Levavos. That's probably all right. Let's stick to this because I'm doing this for the Rebbe. This is not for me. So why would it wasn't just that they would go to the Kohen and the Kohen would look and he would declare if it was clean or unclean in a halachic sense. There was more to this ministry that the priests were performing there. The priest had to teach the leper the path of the Torah, the great faith that a person has, and why the pious priests, the pious Kohanim, the Erlich Kohanim, they had this as their heritage because the Kohanim were the descendants of Aaron HaKohen. And so part of their heritage was to teach people faith and to teach people to get along with each other, to have help in their relationships, to counsel people, to give relationship counseling. And in this way, the nation would come to Achdus, to unity. Furthermore, Chazal say also there in the next daf, an Erechin Tes Zayin Amid Beis, an Erechin 16b, Manishtanim and Sora. Right, we're coming up to Pesach, Manishtanim. So what's the difference? Why is this leper different from all other impure people? That the Torah says that he has to sit alone outside of his dwelling place has to be outside the camp. So the answer is because through his slanderous speech, he separated people. He broke up friendships. He destroyed relationships. Therefore, the Torah says your punishment is to the leper, you have to sit alone. And because of this, we could say that's what Chazal say. That's what our sages intended when they said this to me, that it means that Lashon Hara, that slander leads to separation and machlokas and strife and fighting, breaking up relationships. And therefore the Torah says that we have to go back, that he has to, therefore Chazal say, the Torah says that the leper for a certain amount of time has to sit all alone outside the camp because he has nobody to be jealous of there. He has nobody to fight with there. And this way he could stop being jealous and stop fighting with people. That he was mired in these negative attributes of jealousy and strife. So just sit by yourself for a while. So you can remove jealousy from your heart. You can remove strife from your character, from your soul. Just hold on. There's some trucks coming, so I gotta slow down a little bit. And then, so this gives him time to meditate, gives him some space to stop and think, to contemplate his life, and to lift himself up, and to return to the proper path. And sometimes that's what we need in our lives, you know. We need to sometimes take a break and sit by ourselves and all right, this guy's turning. So, all right, and just just think and check ourselves, and then you go back to the right way, and then a person can be merited to a life of peace and joy in this world and the world to come. All right, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. God bless. Please like, share, and subscribe, comment, and we'll see you all later.